Actually, we're going to go to Janet next for our purpose launch, and so that's what I wanted to do right now is introduce and ask my our CXO to join me on stage by unmuting, turning her camera on, unmuting her mic. Janet, please join us.
So I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about Illumini and why did we join? Why did we form this company? What is our purpose? First of all, we are an empathy-driven company, and we have three things in mind when we do anything. And here's our purpose. So the first thing is people. We all know that people are our greatest assets. And we want to be able to keep people safe and healthy. And that is more important now than ever. So for us, people are number one. Number two, the planet. The planet is screaming for help at the moment. If we don't change the way we behave, we're in huge trouble. We already know we're in trouble. So yes, this is Earth Week, but we need to keep this at the front of our minds. We have to think about everything we do as we move forward, so that as stewards of this beautiful home that we have, this beautiful planet, we can pass this safely along to the generations that are coming up behind us. We need to do this. I can't say this any clearer. Thirdly, prosperity. We want prosperity for everybody. If we can help you prosper, then we're doing our jobs. And without prosperity, it's incredibly stressful. We all know that. People are having a difficult time at the moment. So with all these three things in mind, it leads me to the word trust. Trust is something that is very difficult at the moment. We are bombarded with information. We are bombarded with all kinds of things. And it's like, what do we trust? Who do we trust? We have to trust science. We have to trust data, and we have to listen to each other. If we're not listening to each other and we're not learning from each other, how can we possibly move forward? So collectively, with these three things, science, data, and each other, we can move to a wonderful future. I truly believe that. So we're here today to discuss re-entry and what will that look like? What's the new workplace going to look like? And how do we make it safe? How do we instill trust? And are we ready? So I'd like to personally thank our panelists that are here today. We have the brightest minds coupled with many years of experience. We're incredibly fortunate to have all of you here with us. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I'm super excited to hear what you've got to say. So with that being said, please remember, stay strong, stay safe, and stay well, because you know what? Our future is bright, and we have so much to appreciate and so much to look forward to. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for that. And yes, we are Illumini, and we're really happy to have everybody here. One of the things that we also have set a tradition of doing is supporting a charity whenever we can and bringing up charities of importance. With this being Earth Week and Earth Day being 2 days from today, we made a decision as an organization to support a local charity called Ottawa Riverkeeper. And I just invite anyone that's not familiar with the Ottawa Riverkeeper and their mission of protecting our watershed at all costs and all times to consider making a donation to the Ottawa Riverkeeper or a charity of your choice with in support of our environment and our planet. We will be making a donation at the end of the event. We're just inviting you to at least check them out. And they just today put on their website that they've now got an app that you can go and organize and clean up a portion of the river on your own, stay safely distanced from others, and just use your app to record what you did, when you did it, and take a photo of how much garbage and so on you picked up on behalf of the future of the Ottawa River. And it'll keep that tally going for you, and you can do your part individually. So that is the Ottawa Riverkeeper, and we're happy to be supporting them today. So without any further ado, again, I want to also thank ESAX and Jared for the platform that we're using today. It's a new platform. It's going to give us an opportunity for networking at the end of the event. So please stick around after the event is over and continue to network and meet some of the amazing people that are here today. But I think it's time to get into it. I want to start introducing our panelists one at a time. And our one of our new panelists, because it's our third event, I'd like to welcome and call Megan Cornell to join me on stage, unmuting. And Megan is founder and CEO of Momentum Business Law. They're an innovative, tech-forward boutique law firm focused on helping startups and entrepreneurs. She's also founder of Momentum Law Labs, a technology company dedicated to building innovative solutions for entrepreneurs. Megan has been advising entrepreneurs on workplace issues for 20 years, including all the questions relating to the COVID workplace. Megan, welcome to the panel discussion with Illumini.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Definitely a hot topic of conversation with our clients these days. So I'm really looking forward to the chat and learning from my co-panelists as well.
And you're going to be taking the very first question, so get ready. All right.
Okay.
And next up on our panel, some of you that were with us for our previous events will remember, and some of you might be new to Meredith Thatcher. She's a consultant, public speaker, workplace strategist, and change leader with 30 years of experience, actually more than 30, but nobody's counting. The agile work transformations are part of her work with clients in North America and overseas. Meredith works closely with leadership teams to analyze, envision, and plan for a more agile workplace. And just if you don't know this, last year, Meredith and her partner Lisa, co-founders of Agile Work Evolutions, Inc., won Best New Business Award at the Best of Ottawa Business Event. Meredith, welcome to the panel discussion.
Hello, Jeff. Thank you. And Megan, I'm looking forward to sharing the stage with you. We haven't met except very recently, so it'll be an interesting discussion, I have no doubt.
That's right. And so next up, and let's keep going, let's welcome another new member to our virtual event team. Duncan Keith can turn on his camera, unmute. Duncan has 33 years. I just don't believe it, Duncan. In the field of facilities management, Duncan earned a reputation for constantly looking around the corner as to where the workplace will be. Duncan has presented to the Real Property Institute of Canada on 4 separate occasions, and he's been there to share his views and results of his projects. Duncan is currently developing an integrated workplace management system, the acronym IWMS, for ESDC, that's Employment and Social Development Canada, to help manage its $250 million with a B CRE portfolio. And he's also got a keen interest in new technology to help organizations manage the new hybrid work environment that we are all planning for. Duncan, welcome to the panel discussion.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
That's right. And finally, from our first 3 panelists are all, I think, in the 613 zone, but not this next one. Welcoming Paul Daugherty, Nashville, Tennessee, Chairman, CEO of the Digit Group. He's appeared on Bloomberg TV, is acknowledged by CNBC as one of America's business titans. Forbes magazine reported Paul as changing the world. Paul is an award-winning architect and is one of the world's most sought-after thought leaders, strategists, and integrators of process technology and business. We have him here today, folks. Paul is also chairman of TDG Global Ventures, a multi-billion, there's that B word again, dollar Singapore-based smart city real estate development company. Paul, welcome back to our Illumini virtual sphere. We're so happy to have you, and the Islanders are still in the playoff hunt, so you must be in a good mood.
I am in a good mood, Jeff, and thank you. It's good to be back. This topic is really hot because we're now opening up hockey arenas to 25%. And it's going to be interesting to see how all these different industries, including the workplace, starts easing into this new normal. So yes, let's go Islanders, beat those damn Rangers tonight.
Okay, and there's our first cuss word, and so we will keep track of those as the event goes on. Every cuss word is an extra $1 to the Ottawa Riverkeeper. I want to introduce Chris Phillips into the conversation, Ottawa Senator, defenseman known to stop the advancement of the other team. And this is the 1 minute warning on your question answer. If you see Chris Phillips, that I'm holding Chris Phillips, if his head is shaking, it means you're really out of time. Okay, have we all got that? So I just want everybody to say hi to Chris Phillips. He's our official stopper of excess flabbing, and he's now shaking it at me. So here's how this is going to work. We've already used up all our time for round one, but I don't care. We're still going to have round one because Megan is taking on our first question. Megan has 3 minutes-ish to answer the question. After she's finished, if any of the panelists wish to pile on, rebut, add on, you just raise your hand and I'll unmute yourself. And if Megan, if you're challenging Megan, she gets a minute back to defute your argument. Are we all set to go? And Megan charges every 15 minutes, so I really have to get started. Everyone happy? And also, I just wanted to bring your attention to the Q&A. This is the interactive part, folks. If you wish to ask a question of one of our panelists, you can head over to the Q&A and put your question in. And it's really cool is others that see your question, you can be anonymous as well. You can ask a question anonymously. If others like your question, they can actually vote it up. And we'll keep track of the most popular questions, and we'll bring those into round 3. And that'll be wild card, could be answered by any of the 4 panelists, unless you specifically in your question say, I want so-and-so to answer this. I've already put 4 questions in there, and that is designed for us to, you can go over there now and vote. I've got 4 different scenarios of workplace situations. One is that your workplace never actually closed. You just want some ideas to make it safer. 2 is you're staying closed and staying remote until the pandemic is declared over. And then questions 3 and 4 are some option of those 2. So if you don't mind going there and voting for the one that best represents your thoughts about your workplace, then we'll kind of know what everyone in our group are focused on for the most part. Okay, everyone good? Chris Phillips, don't forget. Megan, you're up first with momentum law. This question for you. What are the ramifications and rights for employers and employees if an employee refuses to return to the workplace because of pandemic fears?
I don't need 3 minutes. All I need to say is it depends, which is the most lawyer answer. This is what we go to law school for 3 years to train for, is saying it depends to people. Unfortunately, that really is the answer. So let me assure you that as a lawyer, I also can talk for the full 3 minutes about the it depends. But I do like to give a couple cautions during COVID. And really, you know, we started saying this a year ago. And that is, we're in unprecedented times. And as far as the law is concerned, we rely on precedent. So of all the people that are uncomfortable with unprecedented times, I can tell you the lawyers are the least comfortable people in the room, because we go back and look at what other decisions were like to advise our clients. And we've not been able to do that. We've had to completely guess. Obviously, there's been situations where the legislation has stepped in and we can make fairly educated guess about what the court would say. But what the court would say is the other caveat I like to give. You do not want to be the one making COVID law. So regardless of what you think your legal position might be, please don't be the one that decides you're going to go to court as an employer to dig your heels in and get a ruling against you. It's not going to be financially worth it. The pandemic's going to be over. And although the lawyers will thank you for helping make case law that we can turn to, it's not going to be helpful. So baseline is at any point in time, an employee can refuse to work if they feel there is a cause to believe there's a danger to themselves. That's all you need to know as an employer right now, is that if your employee can establish that that's the case, they're allowed to refuse work. Now, there's a process involved. They file a complaint. If you as the employer disagree, then you bring in the Minister of Labor to do an assessment of that. So there's a whole process, but that is the baseline, and it applies all the time, not just in pandemic times, but obviously if you're asking them to come into the workplace and that's their position, you're going to have to take it pretty seriously. And I think you want to think pretty seriously about accommodating their concern instead of going to court. I think my 3 minutes is up. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, I think we're there.
Okay.
Anybody want to add to that from the panel? Oh, and again, I just want to remind everyone that if you go out of the chat over on the far right margin and go into the Q&A, there's an opportunity there for you to indicate what you think might be happening in your workplace going forward. Thank you for that, Megan. We're going to go on to Meredith, who's going to take our next question with Agile Work Evolutions. Meredith, what types of issues and challenges have the majority of your clients come to you with, and have you noticed any new challenges since the pandemic began?
Jeff, that's a big question. It covers so many different aspects. But if we look at it, it's where in the past we used to focus on workplace strategy. That's not enough anymore. You have to think of what's happening with the workforce, what's happening with the workplace, what kind of business transformation are we doing. But so what's been really interesting is with our software, we have actually surveyed 10,000 people in the last 2 years, 5,000 in the last year, and the changes have been significant. So even though we're in pandemic-forced remote work, people are saying, I kind of like this. Not everybody, but many are. And that's with spouses at home and children at home and not being able to get out and not being able to get to the gym so that they're able to experience it. And so what's happening is prior to the pandemic, most organizations were 5 days a week at the office. Now, during the pandemic, we're 5 days a week at home. Well, guess what? We're going into another new normal, which is some kind of hybrid. So where we used to talk and think about everything equal in the past, now we're talking about equitable. And it's not everybody is the same. Everybody's different. They're all going to want something different. They're all going to perform in different ways. And so the ubiquitous experience we're talking about is about an excellent experience for everybody, regardless of where I'm coming from. So think about the meeting of the future. So right now, the meetings are, we're on Zoom or we're on Jared's wonderful platform here. And it's pretty much level set, right? We're all equal. We all have the same size view. We all have access to our microphones. But we go into a hybrid environment, and what we're going to see is some people in meeting rooms and some people at home. And before the pandemic, it was not a great experience to be the virtual dial-in person. That's not going to be acceptable going forward. The other big challenge we're seeing is this issue of pay scale. And when I can live and work anywhere, and work for anyone. Now in the past, when I might have been in a lower cost environment, I am moving into, you can take your little guy and put him where the sun don't shine. So anyway, but the challenge is going to be that there's a lot coming. There are going to be a lot of changes about how do we experience the environment. And I'm going to tie back into Kimberly in that most people say, well, I can see the train coming down the track, so I want to put rules in and I want to do all this. The reality, guys, is we have no precedent. We don't know what track that train is going to be on when we go back to the office. So it's about being open, experiencing new ideas, and being careful about not putting too many rules in place.
Meredith. Chris Phillips thanks you as well.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Anyone have a challenge of that or want to add to it? Okay. Well, Duncan, you're up next, and your involvement with the government. I know you're the first person that's been with us that's been heading up government office space for the Government of Canada. Welcome. And you've, I guess, got a question regarding work outside the office, and workers have been working successfully now outside the office for over a year, and this is becoming this whole idea of a hybrid space. And so for people that are responsible for a large real estate portfolio, what are the sort of needs for this distributed workforce to keep everything moving forward? What is the government, what are you aware of that's being considered to keep moving ahead successfully?
Thanks, Jeff. I guess, share with everybody, we didn't practice these questions beforehand, so I didn't know what the other panelists were going to say, but it feels like we're all going to be talking about chapters in a book and building on what each other person is saying. I'll sort of pick up where Meredith left off. This is, in my opinion, the biggest change to the workplace since arguably the dawn of the workplace. And now you're starting to, I think my daughter, who's an architect, called the workplace sort of a human factory, where people were forced to come together to build and do work. And there's many parts of, you look at consulting groups that operated independently. This idea of remote work isn't new. There's nothing new here. What's changed is the scale. I am lucky to work for a department that's 30,000 people, a very progressive department. And some of the challenges we're seeing is the department is sort of, it's going to a distributed work pattern very, very quickly, with a lot of flexibility being given to our employees about where they work. And the challenge we have right now is, how do you plan for a real estate that costs $250 million when you're not quite sure about where they're going to work, how often they're going to want to come into work. And these are some of the challenges we're looking at as we map out our portfolio, and they're still under discussion, but I can share with you some of our thoughts. First of all, we know that, and I think to kind of what Meredith was saying, there's a lot of surveys going on right now, but anybody that takes data from the middle of a pandemic and thinks that's going to be the next 10 years, that's a fool's errand. So we have to assume there's going to be change, and we've already seen the data points changing quite a bit just in the last 12 months as people adapt to this new reality. So our solutions have to be more nimble and flexible going forward. We're also looking at sort of greater choice in perhaps where people work. So before, we used to be, like a lot of government departments, very NCR centric, and we're already in the last year seeing employees move across the country. So the question is, how do you sort of plan for this? And I've always been a very people-centric person myself, and one of the things I'm trying to promote within my own department is let's stop guessing, let's start asking our people. And looking for that data and letting the data guide us as we move forward, and asking people how often they want to come into the office, what days of the week they want to come into the office, how far they would like to drive to come into the office, and start basing our decisions that way. And if you think about it, it's really just a new way of doing functional programming, and with the expectation that this sort of the ground is literally shifting under us as we make these plans, which is always the challenge in our field. Is, it takes us sometimes 2 to 3 years to build something, and by the time you've built it, the conditions have changed. So you have to build flexibility into your solution, and I'll stop there.
Okay, thanks very much, Duncan. Appreciate that. And how's everybody doing? I know that we're running a little bit long on time, so if I have everyone's okay, I'm just going to go right on to Paul.
I have something I'd like to pop in on.
Sure. Yeah, let's go.
To some degree, Duncan and Meredith, just because I'm going to be the big bad employer side lawyer for a moment. And we've surveyed our own team exactly the same way you're describing. But the caution about that is that while you're surveying, that you're being clear as the employer to remember that you've got a whole bunch of obligations across all employees. And so simply saying, whatever you want, we're going to go with, is not a great starting point in the survey. So if the survey implies to your team members that tell us what you want and we'll make it happen, it's not a good place to start, because you can't tell one employee that successfully works at home that solution works for them, and then another employee that also wants to work completely at home, but it's not a successful work environment for them for various reasons. You're going to potentially have a human rights complaint on your hands. So the point is, remember, as we do this in a very empathetic way and we try to embrace the new reality, that if you're in the employer role, you've got to wear that employer hat and remember to not set the ground for the conversation as whatever you want, we're going to go with it, because you're probably going to regret that. And then the other piece of that is that the longer you allow something to go on in a certain way, the more it will become a term of your employment agreement with those employees. So if you're going to allow a period of time post-pandemic to explore options, you want to make sure that it's very clear you have the right to dial it back and say, this isn't working, we're going to make these changes. And that is my decision as an employer that we're going to do that. Because if you've set the ground again to say, whatever your choice is, we accommodate. And then you try and change it, you're probably going to have constructive dismissal on your hands. So it's just while we're all in a kumbaya moment about embracing the new reality, remember your job is, as the employer, if that's who you are listening, to be cautious about how you go through it.
Jeff, I might add, not a rebuttal, but maybe a clarification quickly. And thanks, Megan. I guess what I didn't make clear is we're not asking the employees what they want with the idea that that's what we'll give them. We're asking them that's what they want because we want to be able to base decisions on that data. I guess, so that's how we're looking at it. It's a great point that you raised, because there's some senior management who confuse consulting with the employees, that we're giving them free rein. That's not what it's about at all. But it's starting to get a better sense of what they want. And I got to say, my department's been way ahead of the curve for a large number of years in terms of allowing people to work from wherever they want. I manage a team that's coast to coast.
Okay.
Yeah, those are, it's interesting with the surveys is that we have to survey to have the evidence to understand the employee preference, but it's not about permission. It's not about authorization. It's not about, here you go, we'll see you again in 10 years. It is very much about getting the voice of the employee and not relying on anecdote or the latest headline on Twitter or whatever it happens to be. Having that evidence in order to make appropriate decisions. But you make a good point about, if we don't start to solve it soon, we are going to, by definition, be leaving people at home. And as you said, it becomes a term of employment. And so be really careful you don't wait too long to come back with whatever your solution is.
Okay. I want to get to Paul and talk about safety. Next month, the first week of May, is Emergency Preparedness Week. I believe it's US and Canada both. And Paul, you're designing smart cities, and you're using the best technology, the best thinking available to make cities basically from scratch. And so all of the issues of safety around air safety and fire safety and water, cleanliness and so on, there's a lot of technology tools that have come on the scene that weren't even available 10 years ago. And so if we have the chance to upgrade our buildings to make them safer, can you talk to us a bit about how we can take some of the thinking of smart cities that you're working on and bring them into, bringing our Class C and Class B and even our Class A buildings up to a whole new level of safety standard?
Well, yeah, it's going to take a reimagining of what is workspace, which has been alluded to with the other panelists. And that reimagining really comes down to, I think, what Janet led off with, which was trust. When we build a building, when we build a neighborhood, when we build a complete city, the idea is, how do you have people come out of their comfort zones and want to move to a brand new place that didn't exist before, that has a quality that lessens the uncertainty of things? And I think that's what COVID has really brought us, is about this reimagining of the trust relationships between ourselves as humans and with the inanimate objects like a space. Is me going into a restaurant going to make me sick? Is going into an open office plan, do I become asymptomatic and I bring it home and I infect my loved ones? That is a real big deal, which is why some of the science and the data that we're working with comes down to certain things to enhance relationships, specifically between myself and the space, specifically the workspace. And a lot of that has to do with a re-understanding of how important indoor air quality is. Just the fact that the majority of fresh air intakes into a building are at street level in every urban environment is mind-boggling to me, right? And we wonder why we have sick buildings, even before the pandemic. But now that we're in the age of pandemic, we should also be rethinking about, well, this isn't the last one for the next 100 years. Because of the way that global warming is happening, because of the permafrost that's unleashing a lot of viruses that have never been seen for millions of years, This is the world that we're now in. There is no new normal. This just is what it is. So we're taking a look at things like diffusion, taking existing air conditioning and heating systems, and instead of blowing air, which is a real culprit of the spread of any sort of virus inside of an indoor air quality area, by diffusing it, we now have a different way of limiting the amount of droplets that come off a human being. Because you can use all the UV lighting you want, you can use fresh air into your air handling units and have that pristine clean. The problem is humans infect those spaces. So that's the type of stuff that we're looking at. We're also looking at voice command as a brand new way of rethinking that trust. And I think that, when we take a look at things like Alexa and Siri and others, there's a broad need to have that Jiminy Cricket to say, your space is okay. I saw your little hockey dude there.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
And that's a wannabe hockey player.
Chris Phillips, hey, be careful. I still invite you to Ottawa anytime. Just a little bit more on what you mean by diffusing as opposed to, so can you just expand that a little bit for someone that doesn't work every day in HVAC?
Sure. So what happens is when you have air blowing through duct systems, right, and it comes out through air registers, you can point the air register to actually have diffused air be pushed in a certain direction. The Centers for Disease Control here in the US did studies on restaurants and open office plans that showed how COVID spread. And it was because of the pointing of the way that airflow happened. Now, and of course, there's the time element because you're sitting at a certain spot. So over time, you get infected. One of the interesting things about diffusion, though, is that we can take certain building control systems, like your JCIs and Siemens and all that stuff. And instead of having all the air on or all the air off, you can actually create different levels of how air gets pushed so that it diffuses out rather than being pushed out. Just that alone helps limit the amount of spread of disease. It doesn't eliminate it by any means. And disinfecting and washing hands and social distancing and wearing masks to protect others from you, all that stuff still stays. I don't care how much you are vaccinated. Mm-hmm. We're just in this new world that has to rethink, how do we push air into a space and not have the distrust or the uncertainty that when I go to work that I'm going to be infected.
Oh, thanks, Paul. And the other thing that we're working on at Illumini, we've been had some people talking to us about putting our UV lights in the air returns. And so we are disinfecting the air constantly throughout the day as the air returns with our UV lights. So thank you for that. Now, Megan, we're into round 2, and I know that we have to keep moving. So this actually came up in a conversation I was having with a main facilities person in a major downtown office complex, over 10 floors occupied, people still working from home. And I just got talking with him, and he said, that it's not so much the design and adding screens and splash guards and sneeze guards and direction signage. He says the biggest challenge they're having right now is how are they going to deal with an employee that does not want to get vaccinated, but wants to return to the office and be with the team. And so what are the employers rights in this, that, and the employee rights? Can you speak to that? Because there's a lot of people that unfortunately from the stuff on the internet are saying, no, I don't know if I want this vaccine. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and one we're definitely, as vaccines are rolling out, answering a lot of questions about. We've got 2 competing obligations here as an employer. You've got your occupational health and safety obligations, which are a whole big piece, an obligation on the employer part. And then you've got human rights considerations on the other side. And as an employer, you have to be balancing those 2 things. And this is going to be the test of that balance, I think. Particularly if someone claims, like I have school-aged kids, so I'm, aware my kids have to have vaccines to go to school unless we claim some kind of exemption based on religious or moral grounds. This is now a deadly disease that if we don't stamp out, it will continue mutating. Like, we've got a worldwide issue here. So there's been slight rumblings about the government legislating in this area. And I will publicly say I heartily encourage it as an employer side lawyer, because I don't think it's fair to put our workplaces and our employers at the forefront of making this decision. It's simply not okay. It's a public health issue. And so I think if we take that step, we'll maybe have a 2 or 3 year time period where occupational health and safety is allowed to trump any sort of human rights consideration when it comes to vaccine, except for the caveat that some people can't get vaccinated. It's not a religious or moral reason, it's a physical reason. And those are gonna have to be accommodated, like absolutely no doubt about it. If someone has a medical condition that means they can't get vaccinated, you are gonna have to come up with an accommodation plan. If that means that the employee in particular wears a mask and they have a secure workplace where they're not going to be exposed, well, they're wanting to come back to the workplace largely probably because they want to interact with their teammates. So it is going to be a really tricky issue. But those are the two legal things that we always have to weigh in these kinds of considerations. I think there's some sense that if you're saying to new employees, you can only be hired here if you are vaccinated, we may start to see that being okay, but we still have human rights considerations in the hiring process as well. So it's not going to be that simple, unfortunately. But hopefully the government is going to step in. I'm not usually a pro-government legislating everything, but this is one space where I think it's not fair to put this decision on employers.
Well, I think that will be something that we'll be talking about yet for some time to come. Thank you, Megan. And I just took a quick look over at the Q&A, and quite a few people have put some questions in. I just want to remind everyone that we're coming to the end. We've got a few more questions to go in round 2, and then we'll be going to our questions. But just let's take a quick look at what some of our folks are voting. And it looks like some of the top topics are that they are going to keep everyone remote until the pandemic is declared over. So looking for ideas about, making improvements under those, and that's actually in a tie with the other group of people that want to use the summer to upgrade the facility, and they're planning for a fall return. Any ideas about that? And then in a close second, the workplace remained open. We just want to find a way to make and keep things safer. So, but there's still time to go and put in your question. You can do so anonymously, and we'll be going to that in round 3. But we're still in round 2. We're going to Meredith. And Meredith, you mentioned that you've actually been surveying thousands of people, and a lot of these surveys have been happening. Even you were already out there surveying before the pandemic, and also I have no doubt you've been doing some while this pandemic has been in place. And so what are you seeing? What's happening? Are people happy at home now? And then maybe, what does this mean for design, and what are you hearing? So let's share that, because you've been talking to people that a lot of folks haven't had the opportunity to. So let's go, Meredith.
Yeah, so we have been surveying across multiple industries, public sector, private sector, throughout North America and into Europe. And there are some consistent findings, and we do have some pre-COVID that we can compare and contrast to during COVID. One of the big things that we found was the number of days that people would like to be able to work from home. Before COVID, it was just shy of 2 days a week. We're now seeing 3.75 days at home, remote or co-working. So somewhere other than the official office. And again, this is preference, but what that translates into is some really interesting environmental findings. We're sitting here in Earth Week. So if you take that, translate that into how many trips could be avoided for an organization of 20,000 people, that translates into 118,000 trips a week that people are not in their cars or on a bus or in a train. So that's significant for communities. The other shift that we're seeing is why people are coming back to the office. So yes, most, not all, have both the technology and the equipment to work from home. Some are doing better at it. The mental health part is a little bigger of an issue given that we're in a pandemic and we're in lockdown. And that's not necessarily what typical remote work would feel like. But what's been really interesting is why they want to come back to the office. And companies saying, how do I get them back to the office? That's been a big one, is how do I attract them back to the office? Well, first of all, we have to really listen to what they have to say. So if you're going to survey them and then not listen or react, then it's going to backfire. So you have to really look at what are they saying, what have they proven in the last year in terms of productivity. And so we're seeing that for many organizations, productivity is up, but that's because people are working more hours perhaps. But what we are seeing is this desire for socialization, for communication, for collaboration, to be back together with our colleagues. And so when you start to overlay that to a workplace, it really makes you think in terms of, what about all those offices and workstations I have? And what kind of workplace do I create? But you heard Duncan say, we still don't know what the future looks like. We need to be flexible. So how do we start to balance what do we need for independent focused work at the office? Because there will still be some, though not as much as I do. I don't need to be in a car for 2 hours to do 6 hours of email and then get back in a car to go home. But at the same time, how do we enable that collaboration? And I want to talk about trust a little bit. And so trust requires two things, competence and benevolence. So they have to believe that we are competent to create a safe workplace. And we have to believe from a benevolence point of view is that they're doing it for my good. So I have to believe they're taking the human being in me into account as decisions are being made. But the big thing is going to be around the need for flexibility, flexible to where and how people work, flexible to how we create a workplace, flexible to the technology that we create. It is really going to be the number one thing that we have to consider as we go forward, because we're going to have to course correct as things change, and they're going to continue to change from virus to technology to how businesses respond.
Thank you, Meredith. Duncan? I'm going to go to you now because 30, I still don't believe, I don't think the number's right, 33 years, all in the government?
No.
But anyways, the time you spent in the government.
Some of that, quite a bit in the private sector.
But the most recent majority of years in the government. And
yeah.
So retirement might be something you're going to have down the road. But, if you were able to see some, the government and your colleagues within the federal government adopt some new, aspects of the workplace, be it design strategies or technology strategies, what do you hope, what do you think needs to take place so that the government is in a good position to look after the country for the next 20 years going forward? Are there some things that we really need to see happen in the government that you hope happens? And why?
Well, I think a couple of things. So first of all, I feel guilty because I'm usually known for making big, bold statements, and I haven't lived up to that yet. So here we go.
Let's go.
Jump into the pond. Let's do this. And if I'm going to live up to my moniker of being Meredith's brother from another mother, I gotta live up to that reputation.
We're ready.
Here's what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it actually happen in real time in my department. So I'm just going to project out, and we'll have fun with the idea. And if it ends up this way, I guess we'll find out. And my department, again, very progressive, has been very open to getting the best talent wherever it is. And already I'm seeing people start to migrate around the country to places where they might want to work from. Places that are more affordable. I had a person on my team, a junior member on my team, who likes to surf and said, I'd like to move to Victoria. She's moving there at the end of the month. Makes no difference to me in terms of our working relationship, where right now she's been working effectively for the last year. She logs in. I don't care where she logs in from. And more throughout my department, we're changing some of our hiring practices. We're getting rid of geographic restrictions, and we're starting to see a sort of a migration. If I was to take that thinking down the road, I would hope that probably what that would mean is a much smaller government base in Ottawa and a much greater spread distribution of public servants across the country, better representation in the government of Canada. I'm hoping that eventually, oops, sorry, I've got a dog there. I've got. I'm hoping that we'll start seeing more flexibility in terms of hours work. So there's a lot of people, new parents and stuff like that, who maybe have more limitations on the number of hours they can work. And this is, I'm getting into collective agreements, but I'm shooting down the road here, and really, frankly, getting to engage a workforce of different abilities, all sorts of things. So I think that's going to happen. And then I sit there and I listen to people talk about, but we have to come back into the workplace because that's where the culture is and the fabric of this organization. And I think that's interesting because I manage a team now from Newfoundland and soon to be Victoria. So one of my big, bold predictions will be that there's some things that we have yet to be able to do remotely that we do really well in person. And that's this strategic planning, this coming together, and that's actually knitting that fabric that we talk about. I've been to many 3-day planning sessions where I've had to listen to 8-hour PowerPoints go on about strategy that I honestly could have read before. And where the team really came together was in the restaurant or the bar after, and we started getting to know each other on a different level and know each other, know about our hobbies and stuff like that. And so I think as you start to see teams become a little more distributed, I could almost, and here's my bold prediction, see a boon in the airline industry. As people start using airlines to come together and start doing more strategic planning, everybody says airlines bad. I would say it's really about net carbon offset. We're talking about looking, the government of Canada already had data that suggested we had sort of 40% of our building space wasn't being utilized properly, and that was pre-pandemic. Speaking to some of the numbers that Meredith has talked about, PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study on the government of Canada that's sort of suggesting that in gross numbers, probably between 30% of people work from home, 30% work in the office full time, 40% hybrid. Net that out to 50% average. The government of Canada is looking to drastically reduce its real estate holdings. So at the end of the day, if we're not driving to work every day, we're using 30 to 40% of the real estate we currently have. Maybe we can get on a plane once a year and meet our colleagues. That's my big, bold prediction.
So the government of Canada airborne and serving you from 20,000 feet. Thank you, Duncan. Paul, I'm going to ask you to help answer the questions that have come in on our poll. It's about, again, drawing from all the work that you've been doing with smart cities and new developments about making some investments in some solutions over the summer so that they can have a safe fall return, as well as, our place has never been able to shut down, but we still want to make it safer. So, can we talk a little bit of product solution and tech solutions, please, to let people know that there's things out there ready to go that they should investigate and add into their facility to support a safe reentry or a safe continued operations?
Strategically, that'd probably be.
Yep.
Oops. I do have this on, right? Okay. Strategically, it's going to be interesting because it's not so much just making a choice and saying that you have a silver bullet, you go 1, 2, 3, and you can open up your workplace and everyone's going to be, singing kumbaya. This really gets into what this age is doing for us, which is helping us stop thinking of the go, 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 and start thinking, well, am I on the right path? And what that means is that there's a whole new standard of care now from an employee and from a building ownership and maintenance and operations that is now a different type of responsibility. So we're exploring, along with our partners, the Well Institute, different types of measures so that we can make proper choices of technologies, innovations, products, and things like that. I think that the Well Institute, a big bold statement, Duncan, would be that LEAD is so 2020, Well Institute is now. Because we are now into a world of, if the greatest thing that the Green Building Council did was that it rose the awareness to the general public that we're not trying to harm the environment. And that's a good thing. But the way that the Well Institute is coming about this is, if you see that sticker, like all the commercials that I'm seeing on TV about it, is that a step in the right process, that this building has met certain measures of air quality, water quality, whatever those measures are for that building, so that I can have that trust? Another one that we're looking at is everyone is going to have one of these, or you don't go into our buildings. You have to prove with a passport that you have a vaccine. If not, you will be ushered away. And that is a big, bold statement, because we have to. I thought the great point earlier was that this is not about political differences. This is about humans against a virus. So the other thing I'd probably add in here is that what is concerning to us is what does happen with lawsuits. So Megan, I thought that your about every piece of how we need to start to rethink, set those standards of care so that we don't become case law, right? And the idea is, who wants to be the first one to be seen as the careless infection control guy, right? That's going to be a big deal. So I think that, above anything, Jeff, with all the listeners here and the attendees to this conference, use this time for strategy and be flexible, as Meredith said, because if we don't have the strategies in place, you could be making a very, very bad mistake, such as, I know this one large scale campus, they bought tons of testing kits, right? And it's the ones with the swab up your nose, right? Well, that's already obsolete. So was that a good strategy? Well, it sounded good at the time, but we have to think about the ethical and moral decisions that we're making right now and how they're going to affect us 6 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because we are redefining what the word workspace is.
Okay, thank you, Paul. It's 1:03, and I just wanted to quickly thank everyone on the panel, Duncan, Megan, Meredith, and Paul, for surviving 2 rounds of our Is Your Workplace Reentry Ready? I'm going to invite Natalie up onto stage right now, because we've had some questions populating in the Q&A, and we've addressed the ones about how to make things safer. So Natalie, are there any questions that have come up that are other than the first 4? And hi, Natalie, welcome. And we're going to be doing the draw right after. We're going to do a couple questions from the floor. So you have all the power now, Natalie, to pick one, and whoever feels like answering it, yeah, go ahead.
Am I going to be mean?
You
Hello,
can pick
everyone.
whatever one is been voted up or seems to fit into the topic that we haven't covered already.
Yeah, it seems like we've kind of touched on a lot of these, but I guess if you guys had to pick like kind of one thing to invest in, whether it be financially or, I mean, your employee and well-being is maybe not a financial investment, but one thing that businesses could do, if you had to pick one. So we'll do a really quick, like everyone gets a minute to go around, whether it be one action they take, one thing they invest in financially. I know, I'm so mean. That's kind of a tricky one. So let's see. Megan, I think you have an idea. Do you want to start with it? Go ahead.
Sure. I could go on forever, but I'm going to choose a very legal, and that is set up your joint health and safety committee if you don't already have one. A lot of businesses in the private industry don't understand that they're actually required to have one of these. The minute you have 5 or more employees, you need to start having a joint health and safety committee. And this is the perfect time to set one up if you don't have it, because you need employee representation once you have over 10 employees. Even if you don't, set it up anyway. There's nobody stopping you from setting it up, but bring your team members into helping answer some of these questions in a formal environment through a joint health and safety committee, because then you're going to get employee buy-in instead of, as private industry tends to do, say, this is how it's done. So even if you're in an office environment, you're required to have this once your team's a certain size. So do that, start figuring out what that's all about and how you're supposed to do it. And then you'll have team buy-in, even for questions like, what does a home office look like? Are there health and safety considerations at home? You can have the team input instead of it just coming from management.
Actually, that's an interesting aspect too, is that, we've all been working from home for over a year now. So who's responsible for, declaring a home office safe. There may be some people here today that have developed some workplace RSI, repetitive strain injuries. So, do employers have an obligation of making sure their employees are in a safe environment? I'm going to go back to Megan on that one.
It's another qualified, probably answer. And of course, if your employee's electing, if you've created a safe workplace for them to come to and they are electing to work at home, your obligation is a lot less than if you're telling them, we don't have a formal workplace anymore, you're required to work at home. So there's a lot of it depends questions there. But it's something we can't just turn our back on, obviously, after we've seen everyone that's been able to, of course. Lots of people haven't been able to work from home for the last year.
Okay, and so Natalie, back to you. Let's take one more that's gotten a lot of support on the Q&A. And then I do understand and I believe that everyone on the panel is going to be able to stick around until about 1:30. So when we shut this portion of the presentation down, we're still going to do our draw first, though. And they're going to go and grab a table, and feel free to network and connect with them after the event. So let's do one more question, Natalie. And thanks everyone for being here. We've still got a good almost 40 people still in the room. So.
Okay, we'll do one more quick question.
This is open
I'm
to all.
seeing a lot of the questions. Yes, exactly. A lot of the questions are similar to each other.
I see one that's got 4 votes about a formula.
Okay, here we go. Is there a formula on finding a hybrid solution to managing workspace with individual seating versus shared seating? Or would you recommend space permitting individual workstations be assigned?
Who would like that one? Do you want to repeat the question? Does everyone understand it?
I can jump in there. Let's repeat the question. But
sure.
It's in go ahead.
Is there a formula? I'll repeat it. Is there a formula on finding a hybrid solution to managing workspace with individual seating versus shared seating? Or would you recommend space permitting individual workstations be assigned?
I'll lead it with that if you don't mind, Jeff. Now Meredith can repeat what I say. Use data, stop guessing, when is life ever a binary choice? I've got in trouble. We keep it seeming to think that it's going to be an individual or workplace. I'd like to promote this idea of much more choice, kind of like a buffet of choice. I've got in trouble calling it 50 Shades of Office, so I'm going to have to come up with a new name for it. But really, I think what we're seeing in these activity-based workplaces is really a whole pile of different choices. And so the question is, how do you get that formula right? Stop guessing. Start asking your client what they want. Honestly, real property is one of the few businesses that I know that's so poor on asking its client or its customer what it wants. So stop guessing, ask the clients what they want, and build solutions that they need. So I hope how's that for a thought?
That's great, Duncan. Yeah, you're right. It's get the evidence, co-create with your client. But it's not enough to start off with that. You have to continue, because we don't know everything, right? What we know is we don't know everything, and we don't know what that future hybrid office is truly going to be, and it's going to morph over time as people get used to different ways of working. And so that not only do we need to have the evidence to start the formula, and there's multiple formulas, there's no one given golden solution here. You have to do the work. There are all kinds of calculators, but the calculators are only calculators, right? They just help you implement the information you have, but then you have to measure. And so you're going to need to be able to measure over time, whether it's sensors or technology or concierge software, whatever that happens to be, but it's really going to change how we perceive environments. In the past, we cared where people sat. We don't care anymore. And I mean, if we truly don't care where they sit, then we need to understand what spaces they care about. and where they want to work and what activities they need to perform when they're in the office. And so it's about evidence, it's about measure, it's about co-create with your client.
Excellent. Well,
So what, just
ahead.
one last thing on
one
that.
one last thought, Paul.
Yeah, I think that this is an awesome opportunity for designers, right? Because we really do have to rethink what does that space look like so that we can create trust, but also measure, Meredith, right? The operative word, not just productivity, because productivity is a very industrial age type of metric. In this digital world, this morphing of the hybrid space, we're now looking at efficiency and effectiveness. And those new measures, I think, are going to be very, very powerful in how we create what the client's design criteria is, their scope of work, to do work, and then respond with just inspirational spaces. That's why I think that having this uncertainty can be a real benefit, because that's when design can actually lead. And I think that's what is coming true throughout this entire webinar. Is we're starved for leadership, and we can't be constrained with going, well, if I do this, these bad things may happen. Now's the time to take that leadership role, and let's design ourselves out of this crazy transitional time.
And the thing I like about what's happening with the pandemic and what it's caused is that it's made us look at things on a more holistic level and not just about the bottom line dollars. People are important. The planet's important. And yeah, if we can be prosperous at the same time, that's great. But let's keep things in perspective, and let's take care of each other. Let's take care of the planet, and let's all prosper from that. So thank you, everyone. I want to make sure that folks have some time to connect with each of you. So Meredith is going to be grabbing up a table shortly. Duncan, do you want your own table? Do you want to sit with Meredith? What's your plan?
Meredith and I get to chat enough.
That's right. Okay. And Megan, you're going to have a table, of course. Thank you so much, Megan. Your perspective and answers. It's so great to have the legal opinion here. And Paul, awesome. Thank you. Awesome job once again. And Kimberly Sunstrom. So I've got a draw, sticking with the environment. I've got a bee-friendly package, gift pack available for each of the panelists for their time today. You're going to get a nice jar of local honey and a packet of wildflower seeds and some other little treats to make a bee-friendly, bee-focused, environmental-focused garden. We've also got 2 more of those to give away to people that are here today. I want you to be here. Jared, can you join me on stage for this? Because I'd like to see if you need to be here to win. And so the first, I did some random number draws. The first 2 numbers I did ended up being like employees and people that I don't think should be winning. So you won't know who you are, but I'll tell you later that you didn't get it. And the number 42 guest is Hendrik Kohler, is winner of the draw. If Hendrik is here, Jared, can he join us on stage and unmute and camera?
He's not here anymore, but he was here earlier.
Well, I want them to be here, so I'm going to be tough for the first 2. Dustin Paquette. Is Dustin Paquette here?
Dustin is here.
And he is one of the 2 winners. And the next name I drew was number 12, and that belongs to Rob Campbell.
Rob is here.
Can we bring Rob and Dustin? Can we bring them up? They get to say 30 seconds about what their favorite part of the show was, and it can also be Chris Phillips if they want. Hey, Dustin, I'm going to be bringing you a bee-friendly package. Thanks for coming. What did you like about today's event?
I just wanted to say thank you for the great discussion today. I learned a lot, and one great takeaway for me was the set up the Joint Health and Safety Committee. Like, I already have a committee, but it's an interesting point to raise and something that's kind of been on the back burner, not thinking about. So that was a good takeaway for me, and it's a lot of the discussions today. I feel good about where our organization is and all of the stuff that we have been doing, surveying staff for the pandemic, during the pandemic, and continue to survey staff. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the panelists.
Thanks, Dustin. And you're going to stick around because we're going to have some networking very shortly. Rob, you're also a winner of the bee-friendly package. I know you're excited. What was your big takeaway from today, Rob?
A little bit from everybody. I was interested to see, again, I have a question in there about the third workspace. Like there's we're talking a lot about the two options, work from work or work from home. And there's a whole element there that I think employers aren't making part of their strategy. And that's the third workspace, whether that's remote work or collaborative spaces or co-working spaces, flexible office locations. Like I think that's massive. The US has certainly picked up on it. Canada's a little bit behind on it. But when it comes to flexibility, so I was hoping to hear a little bit more about that. But there's some great techniques and things for companies finding their way through this. From Megan and from Meredith, always a source of insight and inspiration for sure.
And Rob and Dustin, just before you go, I didn't give you a chance to say who you represent. If you want to represent who you work for, please give them a shout out. Rob, you still have your mic on. You go.
So we've started a company called SpaceFlex. It's a network of 15 locations of co-working and flexible office locations across the city, and looking to scale that out nationally, actually.
That's right. This is your 30 seconds. That was excellent. And Dustin, tell yourself, where are you? Who do you represent? And,
so I represent Federation Canadian Municipalities, roughly 280 employees, and we're working through the agile working and real estate needs, and coming up with a great fit up and future way of working for the organization.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. And thanks, everyone. Wow. Kimberly Sunstrom is somebody I need to get to know more about. And I want you to follow Kimberly Sunstrom. We've also got her Bandcamp link. And if you're not familiar with how a music scene works, the Bandcamp link is where you can go and buy the artist's music. And that's really important right now because the live gigs are just not happening, and it won't still be happening. It looks like even all the summer festivals are shut down, but we are so lucky and fortunate to have Kimberly Sunstrom here today. She's got 3 albums out. One of them's an EP, but I'm still going to call it an album. And Kimberly, welcome to the show. And I know you're going to sing at least one of your original songs. You're going to start out with a song that's from your very first album, and I always get the title wrong. It's about something and the box. Can you help us with that? And welcome.
Yeah.
More that I haven't said.
Called The Kid, the Wall, and the Box. That's the album. So yeah, it is a bit of a mouthful, and everybody thinks it's this very eloquent, well thought out, something so mysterious. But The Kid, the Wall, and the Box are 3 songs off of that album. So I thought that they fit really nicely together, and they create a little bit of mystery, even though the mystery is not that deep.
And you're right here in Ottawa, and we've known each other beyond that, also on other channels on the radio, but I just can't wait for folks to hear you perform. So are you comfortable? Are you ready to go? And do you want to tell us about the first song?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready to go. Thank you so much for introducing me, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this event. It does feel like a stage with that little stage situation and different tables. So it feels very close to the real deal, and it's very exciting for me. So yeah, my name is Kimberly Sunstrom. I am from Ottawa. I'm a singer-songwriter and producer and sound engineer, and I wear a lot of different hats, but performing is one of my absolute favorite things to do. So it's really nice to have the opportunity to do that, and I cannot wait. I feel like the light is just there, and I cannot wait to be able to perform live again, and for faces that are right in front of me. I'm going to start it off with a song. A song called Back of My Head. It's an original. It's a song about being frustrated. I mean, I kind of wrote it from the perspective of my younger self being frustrated in class and not being able to focus very well. I have a lot of interesting report cards, but it feels really like it's taken a new shape in this pandemic, and just being frustrated by things that you can't control, which feels very real the past, 13, 14 months? So it's called Back of My Head, like I said, and I hope you like it. I hit my head on the back of the wall. I'm done with fighting, so gave up on it all. But I can't stand the way you talk, so I think I'll walk it off and just come back. Ooh. It's complicated, it ain't no easy task to be you the odd one out, the joke and the laugh. Oh, well, I won't stand it one more time. So I think I'll knock it off and just come back. Ooh, back of my head against the wall, and the back of the wall against my head. Turn it around and make you think. For one little second we just made sense. Ooh, it's easy to just blend in, stand at the back of the room and keep quiet again. Don't make a fuss, cause it's just not enough. We need to keep it down, we're sick of this stuff. Ooh, back of my head against the wall, and the back of the wall against my head. Turn it around and make you think. For one little second we just made sense. Well, back of my head against the wall, back of the wall against my head. Turn it around and make you think. For one little second we just made sense.
That was amazing, Kimberly. Little more guitar emphasis on the mic for the next song. Okay, the guitar wasn't quite coming through the same,
sure.
but that's all great. And let's do another song. What's next?
Yeah, sure. So the next song that I'm going to sing is called "You'll Move On." It's also an original, and yeah, I feel like a lot of my songs are taking on a different kind of dimension with these lockdown and pandemic times, and it's kind of a song about being able to be on your own. Something I don't want to be on my own anymore. I made a mistake writing the song, but yeah, it's an original and goes like this.
Just a quick question, though, Kimberly. Just tell us a little bit about how you got started in all this and your roots.
Sure, yeah. So I'm actually a self-taught musician, and I started playing music a little later in life. I didn't understand that was something that I could pursue until I understood very wholeheartedly that was something that I could pursue. So I started. You know, I always loved singing, and I was singing for as long as I could remember. And then I realized that it's difficult to just sing. Not a lot of people want to really just hear somebody on a stage singing with no accompaniment. So I started learning how to play guitar and piano, and quite quickly, writing became a really cathartic form of expression, and so relevant in terms of coping and maintaining some semblance of wellness, which is 100% wholeheartedly true over this pandemic. I've been so grateful that being creative has been an outlet and a coping mechanism for me. And I was worried that was going to be something that was diminished in the pandemic. You know, the devastating news of what was going on in the world, I thought would kind of quell my creative side. But I'm so glad and so grateful that was not the case, that I've been creating a lot. Yeah, I do music full time in Ottawa. I tour around the world, not just in Canada, but as far as Indonesia, Australia, and I just love the experience of performing live. That is the best part of my job. And connecting with people and having the opportunity to have those wonderful conversations after a show, sharing the meaning of music and how much it can uplift a person in difficult times, or how much it can pump you up when you're going to the club. Yeah. Oh gosh, the clubs. When does that become a thing again?
I just wanted to mention, and thank you again for being here. Before you perform your last song, that you're going to be performing at the Ottawa Grassroots Festival, which is going to be a virtual festival that's starting in just a few days' time. Do you remember what day you're slated to perform?
Yeah, so I'll be performing at 3 p.m. on Sunday, April 25th.
Okay, and that's the Ottawa Grassroots Festival. We put all the links up for Kimberly Sunstrom in the chat, including the Bandcamp link, and that's the one we want you to check out. You can buy all of her music. It's very affordable. Kimberly Sunstrom original music. One more song to go, Kimberly.
Thanks
And
so much.
stick around if you can. If you have to go, make sure you follow Kimberly, find her, and get more of her music into your playlists.
Thanks so much again for having me. So I've changed my mind since we've talked, and this next song is actually going to be a song that I wrote in the pandemic. It's a really new song since we're talking about the creative juices. It's called The Train. I'm in the process of working on recording it and hopefully be able to release it at some point this year. If you ever feel like making train sounds when you're listening to music, this is absolutely your opportunity. She grew up tall in a small town backyard, never knew there was so much happening around. With open eyes, she let the world seep in, and just like that, the trickle turned into a douse. All around and in between, the walls are caving in, and I'm starting to sink. Simple life just seems too thin when the bullets and the gas start rolling in. Sometimes I dream when it's all so quiet, a sleepy mind made for a quick bedtime. Restless nights are leaving me too tight, while the thoughts are materializing. Yeah. So raise your glass, so raise your fist. We're sick and tired of it, is what it is right now. You're louder now than you've ever been, but next week's coming, are you gonna fit into the crowd? And all around and in between, the walls are caving in, and I'm starting to sink. Simple life just seems too thin when the bullets and the gas start rolling in. Sometimes I dream when it's all so quiet, a sleepy mind made for a quick bedtime. Restless nights are leaving me too tired, oh, all the thoughts are materializing. Materializing. The train is coming and it's coming in hot. The train is coming and it's coming in hot. Woo woo. The train is coming and it's coming in hot. Woo woo. The train is coming and it's coming in hot. Woo woo. The train is coming and it's coming in hot. It ain't gonna slow and it ain't gonna stop. Tie your laces up on your mom said go. It's time to run, so you better know. Ooh. All around and in between, the walls are caving in, and I'm starting to sink. A simple life just seems too thin when the bullets and the gas start rolling in. Sometimes I dream when it's all so quiet, a sleepy mind made for a good dead time. Restless nights are leaving me too tired, oh, all the thoughts are materializing. Woo woo. Woo woo. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this event, and have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks so much. Take care.